officers where the situation took place, and once again, send up prayers for this family. Make sure that we understand as a community it's time for us to take some of these matters in our own hands. We have to regroup, rethink, reshape how we deal with the distress caused in our neighborhoods.
On February 16th, 2020, the bodies of a 26-year-old mother and her 2 daughters were found in a Milwaukee home garage. The police arrived and found the bodies were burnt beyond recognition. An autopsy was done and later revealed that the little girls were strangled and the mother was beaten before being unalived and set on fire together with her 2 daughters. The victim was Amara Jerica Banks, and on the 8th of February 2020, she mysteriously went missing along with her daughters in Milwaukee, just 1 day after the funeral of her 1-year-old son, who had also died in a heart-breaking manner. The unusual silence disturbed her family, as they knew she had been in mourning. When they reached out and discovered she was nowhere to be found, her mother's concern quickly turned into fear, because she wasn't the type to disappear without a word. What was even more strange was that her boyfriend, a young man with a troubling past, had also disappeared. It was at this point that the police pushed a missing person report, and an investigation would follow immediately. What started as a desperate search for a mother and her children slowly turned into something far darker, because the murderer lived close to Jerica Banks. This is the story of the mysterious disappearance of a young family forced to face a horrible tragedy at the cruel hands of the person they trusted. Before we get into the video, we would like to extend our condolences to the family and friends of Jerica. We would also want to use this case as a close reminder to everyone to be careful with who we trust or let into our lives. This story would be taking us to Milwaukee, a city located in southeastern Wisconsin along the shores of Lake Michigan. It is known for its rich brewing history. Crime data from 2022 shows Wisconsin falls below the national average rates, with 297 violent offenses per 100,000 crimes. Although this was supposed to be a safe city, our tragic crime would happen here. Jerica Banks grew up in a large, close-knit family with 5 siblings. What many people didn't know was that she was adopted into the family at the age of 5, but that did not stop her parents from loving her like their own. Growing up, she had a quiet personality and was very friendly with people. Jerica was also incredibly talented, especially in music. She graduated from art school with honors, played violin beautifully, and had a passion for anything that had to do with art in general. Although she was very young, she wanted a family as big as the one she had been raised in. That is why she decided to start a family with her longtime boyfriend, Arzel Ivory. The two never officially got married, but had a close relationship. They had their first daughter, 5-year-old Zania Ivory, and after that, they decided to part ways. Jerica would later have another daughter, 4-year-old Kamaria Banks, before reviving her relationship with Azrael. In 2018, the two had a son together named Azrael Ivory Jr., but he was not a healthy child. That did not stop the parents from trying their best to get him medical care. Even with these hardships, Jerica loved her amazing kids. Her daughters, Zanaya and Kamaria, were described as inseparable, always curious and full of energy. They loved dressing alike and sharing everything, so much so that people often mistook them for twins. Zell, her youngest, was always giggling, and his sisters adored playing with him and carrying him around. At some point, Azrael became her ex-boyfriend. Although they were not together, the two shared an understanding of shared parenting. He was a father who was fully present in their lives and visited the family often. It is not clear why the couple decided to break up, but it's alleged to have been connected to an incident in 2018. Although Azrael had no prior criminal convictions where he went to jail, he had been arrested once before in 2018 in a domestic violence battery case involving Jerica. He was not charged in that incident, but the police were called. Jerica had been focused on becoming more independent and distancing herself from him. While Arzel had expressed a desire to marry her someday, Jerica didn't see a future with him romantically and only communicated with him about their children. She even took extra shifts in a hospital laundry room, saving every penny to move into a new apartment and start fresh with her kids. As Jerica was preparing to start her new chapter in life, tragedy struck. Her son, Zell, fell sick and passed away in January 2020 from respiratory problems shortly before his second birthday. He had always had asthma and it got worse. Jerica was heartbroken but poured her energy into giving him the best possible farewell. She even created a fund to cover the costs of a Lion King-themed funeral to honor him, as that was his favorite cartoon. On February 7, 2020, Jerica faced one of the most heartbreaking days of her life as she laid her son Zell to rest. At Zell's funeral, Jerica had carefully selected who would speak, but our Zell rushed to the front without her permission. She became very furious but held her composure, knowing it wasn't the right moment to confront him.
And I was supposed to get up and read and say some words, but then he got up and she was angry that he got up and she says, "Why is he up there? Why is he saying it?" She was just really, really, really angry with him. I don't think I've ever seen her that angry.
After the funeral, she and her 2 daughters left without Arzel and returned to her sister's house, where they found some comfort in sharing a glass of wine. Jerica's sister suggested plans to help them recover from the horrific days they were passing through. So they made a plan for brunch the next day, with Jerica promising to pick up her car while they enjoyed their time together. Jerica and her daughters would arrive back at their apartment on the 5900 block of North Sherman Boulevard in the early hours of February 8th. But just after 1:30 a.m., the quiet of the night was shattered. It would appear that Jerica had either been followed or someone had broken into her home to attack her. A neighbor heard a woman screaming for her life, begging someone to not unalive her, and saw her running through the parking lot barefoot and bleeding from her mouth. That woman was Jerica. Similarly that day, another neighbor who lived next door heard loud banging sounds, as if someone was being slammed against the wall.
First response from the Milwaukee Police Department came after reports from witnesses who said they heard and saw a woman yelling for help, arguing with a man outside of an apartment building on the north side early in the morning on Saturday. They called police to report it. Police arrived at the scene but said they could not locate the 911 caller or any disturbance.
That big picture window, that would be my living room. That would be her living room. I hear like loud thumping and I hear a lady screaming, "Help, help, help."
Carefully looking out her window, she spotted Jerica desperately shouting for help while a man dragged her back inside, slamming the door shut behind them. Alarmed, the neighbor called 911, urgently reporting that she could hear Jerica screaming through the walls and asking for someone to come and check on her. The police arrived just minutes later, but couldn't pinpoint where the cries for help were coming from. They cruised through the complex with their windows down and parked for 10 minutes, listening for any signs of trouble. When they heard nothing, they eventually drove away. Meanwhile, the dispatcher had classified the call as Priority 2, meaning it didn't require an immediate response. Crucial details about the caller's location were never relayed to the officers, which would later be recognized as a major oversight. As the morning approached and brunch time drew near, Jerica's family began texting and calling to check in on her and the girls, eager to confirm their plans. But Jerica wasn't answering her phone. Her sister was suspicious because Jerica never ignored calls.
She ain't been active on Facebook or anything. I've been calling her phone since the day she came up missing the last time I seen her. I've been blowing her phone up every single day. All of a sudden today, the phone is off.
Her mother, Valeria Banks, also knew her daughter well. She had a structured routine and was never one to go silent without a reason. Everyone felt a growing sense of unease. Something was definitely off. They knew she had been devastated by the death of her son, but to go silent was strange. Authorities officially started a missing persons investigation on February 9th, 2020, after all the reports. Initially, no one knew where Jerica and her daughters had gone, but investigators began searching her apartment. They found no signs of forced entry, but a few unsettling clues emerged: a hole in the bedroom wall, a missing comforter, and a napkin with bloodstains. Although nothing seemed seriously out of place, these details raised suspicions. The police soon questioned Jerica's ex-boyfriend, Arzel Ivory, by phone because he was not available for a meeting physically. He admitted they had a fight the night she vanished and claimed he spent the night sleeping in his truck, leaving for work the next day without hearing from her. His strange attitude and the way he was replying to the officers on the phone call raised suspicions, especially when the officers discovered he was planning to leave the state for work and that he would come back on February 21st to be interviewed by police. Why was this man, who is supposedly the father of one of the missing children, this calm? An Amber Alert was issued for Jerica and her kids, but by that time, it had been almost a week since they were last seen. The police obtained a search warrant and returned to Jerica's apartment with a cadaver dog, where they made a grim discovery. The dog quickly detected human blood inside a closet, and further investigation revealed even more blood under the carpet, which appeared to have been hastily cleaned with bleach. They suspected Arzel, but did not have any strong evidence yet. On the 15th of February, Arzel's father, living 600 miles away in Memphis, received a shocking call from his son. Arzel confessed to killing Jerica and her daughters and mentioned that he was now in Memphis, trying to start fresh. His father immediately reported this admission to the Memphis Police Department in an attempt to save his son by doing the right thing. This led to Arzel's immediate arrest. Despite his calm demeanor during the confession, the police still had no idea where to find the bodies. Arzel was not willing to mention the place, but with too much pressure on him, eventually, Arzel revealed the location of their bodies. It was in a garage near his old home. Tragically, Jerica and her daughters were found dead, their bodies burned. Autopsies were made, and later confirmed that they had all been strangled, but did not detail exactly how it happened and what fueled this cruelty. How do you strangle and burn children, one of them being your own? After Arzel was caught, he recounted the timeline of events to police, revealing that since they lost their son, Zell, the relationship between him and Jerica had taken a downward turn. Jerica blamed him for the baby's death. Zell was born with severe respiratory issues and was supposed to have surgery to help him breathe. On the day of his passing, Arzel had attempted to take him to daycare, but they refused to take him in because he was too sick. The baby had failed to eat his food and medicine that day, so they advised him to take his baby to the hospital. He accepted and carried the baby back to the car, drove away, and decided to go to another daycare to pick up the other children. On the way, Arzel made a stop over at the store to buy them some snacks. He went in, took some time, and got the snacks he wanted, and when he returned, baby Zell had fallen on his side, lying on the car door. Instead of acting quickly, he repositioned the baby in the car seat again. Arzel waited over an hour with no communication to anyone, not even the baby's mother. Shortly after, Arzel started hearing gasping sounds from the baby and tried to wake him up, but all in vain. And finally, he decided to take his son to the hospital, and by then, it was too late. Baby Zell was pronounced dead. That is when Jerica was called to the hospital and also told the same narrative of what had happened. She was left devastated and angry, feeling she could never forgive Arzel for not acting sooner when their child needed help. Her family stated that Arzel had not just taken the lives of 3 family members, but 4. After the funeral of baby Zell, Arzel claimed he went to work and later showed up at Jerica's apartment around 1:30 a.m. Jerica was really upset, yelling at him and blaming him for Zell's death. She said she couldn't even look at him. Arzel said that in the heat of the moment, Jerica picked up a knife and cut his wrist. In response, he grabbed her and slammed her head against the wall twice, which was the cause of the hole police later discovered. Jerica started bleeding from her mouth and tried to get away. That is when the neighbors saw her outside the house, running barefoot. Arzel pulled her back inside and choked her with both hands. He mentioned that she didn't fight back, leading him to think she wanted to die and that he was merely helping her. Once Jerica was gone, Arzel decided he didn't want their children to grow up without their mom, so he strangled them too. He kissed both girls and told them he loved them, saying Mommy wants you in heaven with her, before taking their lives. At first, he thought about dismembering all 3 bodies, but he changed his mind when he saw a bone, which likely caused the red bodily fluids that the police had found. He wrapped up the bodies and put them in his car. While driving around Milwaukee, he remembered that his old apartment had a garage with a broken lock, so he went there to hide the bodies. After an unsuccessful attempt to set them on fire, he bought gasoline from a gas station and returned to the garage to burn everything. Later, he purchased a gun and fled to Memphis. The calm way Arzell spoke about these events left the officer stunned. He mentioned that since he was the one who brought his children into the world, he felt he had the right to take them out of the world. Arzell Ivory was charged with 3 counts of intentional homicide. When he appeared in court, he kept his head down in shame. Despite the horrific nature of his actions, he initially pleaded not guilty and was held on a $750,000 bond after the judge denied his request for a lower bail of $200,000. Later on, Arzell changed his plea to not guilty by reason of mental illness, recalling a schizophrenia diagnosis and previous suicide attempts. However, after several evaluations, a doctor concluded in September 2020 that there wasn't enough evidence to back up that defense. He was declared mentally stable and in his right state of mind when he committed the crime. The plea was dismissed, and in April 2021, Arzell agreed to a plea deal, changing his plea to guilty on 3 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. According to state law, he was facing a mandatory life sentence, and the only question was whether he would ever ask for supervised release. His attorney argued that he should be eligible for release after 40 years because of his mental health struggles. Before sentencing, Arzell expressed remorse in the courts, saying that he understood his actions had affected the world, and he was genuinely sorry for everything he did.
I know what I did has affected the world. I know I can't change anything by what I say, but I am truly sorry, and I regret everything I did.
Despite his attorney's arguments, the judge denied the request for early release. On the 16th of July 2021, Arzell Ivory was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of supervised release.
At this point, Mr. Ivory, the court finds that the offenses that you've committed, based upon the entirety of the record that's before me, does merit as to each count. And these counts will be concurrent to one another. But as to each count, your sentence will be life imprisonment. And the court has determined, based upon all of the factors that I stated, that you are not eligible for release to extended supervision.
Jerica's family felt that while justice was served, it didn't bring them closure. Valeria expressed sympathy for Arzell, noting that no one from his family attended the hearings, questioning why they wouldn't support their child despite the terrible things he had done. She also shared her previous opposition to the death penalty, but mentioned that now she believed certain individuals like Arzell should never be freed. Concerns were also raised about how the 911 call from Jerica's neighbor was handled. The call had been logged without crucial information, leading to a slow response from the police. Additionally, an Amber Alert for the children wasn't issued until a week after they went missing, and it was Jerica's family who had to push for media coverage of the case. The 911 operator involved in the call resigned before the internal investigation was completed. The aftermath on Jerica's family and community was devastating. Jerica and her children were gone, leaving their family grieving. Her family struggled to accept this news, and they were completely shocked. Remember, they had recently lost little Zell and was still dealing with a heartache only to lose the whole family the very next month. Jerica had a car that she named Big Red before she was murdered in February, along with her 2 daughters. As Banks' family began to reclaim their daughter's property, the question about the car's future started to be asked, and they decided to gift it to a mother.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Just take care of it like she did. That was her car. I know that she would really be, would like the fact that her car was going to go to another mother with a child.
The recipient of the keys, Amani Smith, is a mother who hasn't been able to go to work due to not having reliable transportation. She was very grateful for the gift.
I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. I have my son. It's things that I need to do where I need reliable transportation.
A GoFundMe campaign was set up by her family to help with funeral costs, as well as to settle her estate for any debts she had incurred, which have not been paid due to her passing. We pray that the lives of Jerica and her daughters continue to live on in the hearts of those who knew them. What are your thoughts on this case? The couple was emotional after losing their child, but do you believe Ivory committed these crimes due to mental health issues? Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much once again for watching another video by Wednesday Crime. If you like the way we bring you stories or you learned something new today, please like this video and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet. As always, remember to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Perhaps someone learns from your experience or advice. I will talk to you again in another video. It's bye for now.